Welcome to The Alejo Show.
Hey, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Qué alegría estar por acá nuevamente conectado con ustedes. Hace rato no me conectaba en un Instagram Live ni en un YouTube Live. Tengo que retomar esta actividad muy pronto. Pero pues quería hacer esta transmisión en vivo porque me he encontrado recientemente con una página y con un grupo de personas maravillosas que están trabajando y haciendo cosas increíbles. Y casualmente una de esas personas que trabaja para ese lugar en el cual yo he venido trabajando con ellos, pues es profesor de inglés porque es británico, pero aparte de eso también es una persona que está aprendiendo y ha aprendido demasiados idiomas. Entonces realmente eso me parece muy interesante y por eso es que quiero para que hablemos un poco acerca de todas estas cosas. Su nombre es Sam y va a estar conectado con nosotros en segundos. Hey Sam, there you are.
Oh, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Happy days.
Okay.
Very happy to be
All
here.
right. What time is it there now?
It's 5 p.m., so 5 o'clock in the afternoon. People are just finishing work and going to the beach, I think.
Oh, really? Okay. Let's say that you are in Italy. That even though you're British, you are in Italy right now. Sam, thank you very much for being here with us. It's a pleasure to talk to you. We've seen your work. I have to say congratulations on Black Cat and also on Puppy English. Well,
Yes.
you have to explain what puppy means, because in Latin America it means something else.
Yeah, so I have a personal account called Papi English where I teach English, and Papi came from a nickname. Like one friend of mine, always for some reason, he's not Latin American, he's also English, but he used to call me Papi as a joke. We don't really understand. We don't have the same meaning as Papi as you do in Latin America. When I was creating,
but you know what? In Latin America, we also call our friends like, "Hey, papi, ¿cómo estás?" Especially in Central America, I'd say like Puerto Rico, for example. It's very common to say, "Hey, papi, ¿cómo estás?" So I guess your name has kind of a Latin vibe over there.
Well, I have a lot of followers from Latin America, so I think it works well. I mean, my friend insisted that when I created my Instagram account that I use the name Papi. And I wasn't too keen, I wasn't that interested in using the name Papi, but he kept asking. So I made an acronym. So Papi stands for Practice and Perfection in English, Papi English.
That is amazing. That is amazing. For how long have you been teaching English? For how long? And why did you decide to become an English teacher?
I've been teaching English since I finished university. I look young, but I'm 28. So I've been teaching for 5 or 6 years. So I finished university when I was 22, 23. My initial idea was I wanted to travel to South America to teach English, but it's very far from my family and everything. So I decided to go to Spain originally, and I started teaching English there. Originally, I started teaching English to travel, but then I developed like a passion for teaching English, and yeah, I've been doing it for a while now.
Okay, so you've never come to Latin America?
Yeah, I've been to Ecuador.
Ah, all right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
I went to Ecuador when I was 19 years old. So before I went to university, I had what we call a gap year. So a year between finishing high school and going to university.
Right.
So in this gap year, I went to Ecuador for 1 month. And that's when I kind of fell in love with Latin America. And that's why I wanted to go back again, because it was so different. And I really liked the style of life there. Like it's different. It's a different rhythm to what we've got in Europe.
It is. Well, you're more than welcome to come to Colombia. I will be pleased to have you here, especially in Medellin, if you decide to come. You know, I love to talk to teachers because it gives me different perspectives about, you know, learning English. And one of the things my students in Latin America are very scared of is listening. Listening is probably one of the most difficult things
even more than speaking. People complain like, I cannot speak, I don't have enough vocabulary, but before that, they say, you know, I can't understand when people are talking. What is your strategy when you get students that say that? What's your recommendation for those students who struggle with listening every single day?
Well, with everything, as with everything, practice is absolutely the most important thing. You have to practice your listening skills, and it's so easy to practice your listening skills in English these days with the internet, with Instagram, with YouTube, with podcasts, with the radio, with audiobooks, with music. You can take your pick of what you can do to practice your listening, and I'll give you some little extra tips to make it a little bit more fun. But people tell me that they don't have time to practice their listening, but you've always got time to practice your listening. When you're driving in your car, put on a podcast. There are podcasts that are for people who want to learn English. So they're going to be, the language is going to be a little bit more controlled, and it's going to help you a little bit more. And they're also going to explain things to you. And if you, for more difficult words, they're going to explain that to you. So it's going to make it even easier watching series, even if you have to watch them with subtitles originally. That's another great thing you can do. Music, absolutely recommend listening to music as well. I was talking about this yesterday actually. There's a website called Lyrics Training, which is really fun. I've used this with my students before. And it's a website, they have
lyricstraining.com.
Lyricstraining.com. I believe it is lyricstraining.com, but we might have to just check. But yeah, it's called Lyrics Training. So if you Google Lyrics Training, it will be the top hit on Google. And basically this has like all the popular music, any song you like in English, you can find it. And it's kind of a game. So you listen to the song and you've got the lyrics written underneath, but they put some of the words missing. So as you listen, you have to type in the missing word. And it's really, really fun. You can choose the difficulty. So you might want to start beginner. So like only the odd word is missing. And then you go like intermediate, advanced. That's great fun. Also audiobooks.
All right. Hey, Sam, you know what? Yeah. No, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, not at all. I was just going to say audiobooks, of course, as well. You can read the book and listen to the book at the same time. And that's also a really great way to learn.
Okay. I was going to say that it's very interesting to see your point of view, because I've been teaching English, for very many, many years, but I'm a Spanish speaker, so I am also an English student, if you want to say. But for your perspective, since you were born in England and you are an English native speaker, what is the most difficult thing for us as a Spanish speaker to understand or to apply in English? For you've taught a lot of Spanish people and Latin people. For you, what is the most difficult thing for us, and how can we improve that?
In my experience, I've taught for 2 years in Spain. One of the things that my students struggled with a lot was pronunciation in English, especially when they're trying to reproduce the British pronunciation. If you haven't been doing it since you were very young, it can be quite difficult, because we've got some quite difficult sounds, like the TH sound, the voiced, the unvoiced TH sound, and also the R in English, because in Spanish you use a R, and in English the R is completely different. So this is something my students struggled with a lot. But to be honest with you, it didn't impede their communication too much. Like, people could still understand them even though they hadn't, let's say, mastered this form of pronunciation. But if you want to improve that, you have to spend a lot of time maybe consuming, if you want to, for example, try and get a British pronunciation, consuming British media. So let's say listening to radio, podcast, films, TV series, and also speaking to British people as well, and try and imitate them. When I was living in Spain, there was a politician. I decided I really liked the way that he communicated in Spanish. So I used him as my model. I watched YouTube videos where he did speeches, and I would listen to 10 seconds of what he said, and I'd try and like say it the same way he said it. So with the same intonation and and try and like watch like what he's doing with his mouth and try and do it the same. You can do that with, if you want to learn the American English, British English, Australian, whatever you want to learn, you can do that, and you can try and find like a language model, I'd call it.
Right. Yeah, I've done it. Barack Obama for me is great. I mean, I wish I could speak like Barack Obama. His English is just amazing, so fluent, so clear. And I'm glad that you mentioned the accent thing, because for us in Latin America, we have a lot of influence of American English. Of course, it's the same continent, but we are mesmerized. We are so impressed with British English. A lot of people say, you know, it's more difficult to understand, but most of us say it's so beautiful and it's so natural. But as you said, there are a lot of words that are so different from what we're used to listen to.
Absolutely, yeah. And the thing is, so many people who are, you know, the British English that they are coming across now is from like series like Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinder. Have you watched Peaky Blinders, Alejo?
No, I have not.
It's a series, and it's based in Birmingham. And in Birmingham, in the city, they've got a very strong accent. So if people are trying to listen to, let us know, guys, if you watched Peaky Blinders, did you understand or not? But it's an extremely popular series at the moment, but it's very difficult. Then you might watch The Crown. So The Crown is a series about the Queen. And then they're using restricted pronunciation, which I think is a little bit easier to understand. Maybe it's something you're more used to, and they speak more correctly and clearly. So yeah, there are so many different British accents as well, I think, which makes it even more difficult.
You know, I've got this question asked all the time when people are going, for example, to London or to England. Let's say England to study English, and they say, I want to go to London. And I have never been there. I've never been there. Probably next year I will. And I always say, you know, if you want to learn English for real, you should avoid to go to those massive cities, because there's a lot of people. There are a lot of people from different countries, especially Latin America. So I've always said you should go to other places. I don't know, like Liverpool, like, you know, Brighton, any other places, to learn English, because I think it will be a better experience. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially with the case of London. London's a very cosmopolitan city, so you've got so many people from different parts of the world, not only different parts of England. Depends what area you're in London. You will find areas where, you know, it's very localized and they all speak in a certain way. There are different accents in London. It depends where you go in London. You can hear all sorts of different types of pronunciation and slang. But yeah, I agree. I think maybe going somewhere, you know, a smaller town or a smaller city. Yeah, I think I agree with you. It might be better. In my experience, for example, when I learned Spanish, I lived in Cadiz, which is in the south of Spain. That's Andalusia. So that was very difficult for me, because in Andalusia they speak Andaluz, which is it's a very strong accent, and it was much easier for me in Madrid. In Madrid, when I lived in Madrid, it was much more clear and controlled pronunciation.
Even though it's the equivalent of London, what we're talking. I mean, if you want to learn Spanish, you know, Madrid is the center, is the cosmopolitan city. So maybe Valencia, I don't know, Barcelona, all those places might be better. But imagine, I mean, you learn more in Madrid than you did in Cadiz.
Yeah, probably. The thing is with Madrid, though, it's not as cosmopolitan as you think. I think in Spain, Barcelona is more multicultural.
Okay.
In my opinion, yeah. In Madrid, it's quite Spain, Spain, and Barcelona is more like this,
All
very
right.
intimate.
Okay.
Mhm.
I wanted to talk to you because not only you're an amazing English teacher, but also you already know how to speak Spanish, Portuguese, and now you're living in Italy, so you're learning, or I think you already speak um, Italian. Let's
Mhm.
go to the moment that you were learning Spanish. Um, so you went to live in Spain. Did you take classes, or was it more like a natural learning from streets and stuff?
I took classes, especially when I moved to a new area. It's something that I wanted to do was to take Spanish classes, also because it helped me settle in the area, like to find some friends and you know also just to improve my language a little bit and give me a bit more confidence when I was living there. So yeah, every time I moved to Spain, I did like 2 or 3 weeks Spanish course, intensive, so kind of like 4 hours a day. And then I think that's a really good way to do it if you want to go and live in a country where you're not a native speaker. So I did classes, and then I try to make friends with native speakers, and I try to find fun ways to learn the language. So for me, going out was also an exercise of learning a language. And I went to lots of intercambios, so tandem, you can call it, places like events where you can speak to people in English and Spanish and you can practice your language. That's a really good thing to
Okay.
do. So yeah, definitely. I recommend taking a course.
What was the most difficult part for you when you were learning Spanish? I mean, what was the part that you said, wow, man, I'm really, really having problems with this part?
At the beginning, the grammar. I'd never, because in England at schools, we don't learn grammar in our own language. We don't learn English grammar. We learn how to write, we learn, about the literature of the language, and we know how to speak because we're native speakers. We're born speaking English. We're not born, but from a very young age. So in England, we don't learn grammar. So for me, I started learning Spanish before I became an English teacher. And I took some Spanish classes. The first classes I took were in Ecuador when I went to visit. And the grammar completely blew me away.
Really?
They were talking about, imperfect tense.
Presente plus Juan perfecto.
Yeah, just past participles. All of this was just a different language on its own for me.
Uh-huh.
But eventually I got my head around this. I started to understand that. And then later, the main difficulty perhaps was pronunciation.
All
Again,
right.
because the pronunciation in English and Spanish is so different. And also listening could be difficult when I was trying to listen to people from different parts of the world in Spanish, because Spanish speakers can be from Spain, from Argentina, from Colombia, from Peru, from Ecuador, Mexico.
Yeah.
So many different
Yeah, and
countries.
we have a very different way of speaking than a person from Spain. I mean, you can see some similarities between a person that speaks in Peru and maybe Chile, Bolivia, Colombia, maybe Argentina and Venezuela. They might speak a very different Spanish, but it's quite similar, but different, of course, from the one that you guys have over there in Spain. Um, then you moved to Portugal, or was it before? I don't remember that part, but you also learned how to speak Portuguese. Did you take classes as well?
Yeah, so I lived in Spain originally in Cadiz, and then I moved to Portugal, to Lisbon, where I lived for 2 years. I was teaching English in a school in Lisbon, and this school were very nice to me because they gave me Portuguese classes for 2 years, every single day in the morning for 2 hours, Monday to Friday. So every week I had 10
Wow.
hours, 10 hours of Portuguese lessons. So in that time, I went from a complete beginner, not knowing any Portuguese, but having some understanding of Spanish. So that was an advantage because the languages are quite similar. So I went from being a beginner to kind of doing C1 exam at the end of my stay in Portugal. So that was a very good experience, and
I bet. Yeah.
I never had
Yeah.
problems with grammar in Latin languages again because we studied so
Yeah, of
much the
course.
grammar because I had done so many lessons.
One of the questions that keeps popping over there on the comments is how to avoid translating from your natural or your own language to the language that you're learning. Because it happens to us a lot when we're trying to learn English and somebody asks a question and we immediately try to translate it into Spanish, then we think the answer in Spanish, and then we try to translate that answer into English so we can communicate. Did it happen to you in Spanish or Portuguese or any language?
Yeah, it did happen. It still happens today, especially if it's something that I haven't communicated this kind of thing before. As you develop experience in a language, you learn blocks of language, and it becomes automatic. That's how you should say that. So, in general life, we generally say the same things over and over again. So when you've had so much experience in a language, you learn the correct way to say it. How do you learn it? Because you've heard it so many times, because you're communicating or listening to things with native speakers speaking. So your brain's very clever. It makes connections, and then without you even realizing it, without you having to study it in a book, and then your brain goes, okay, I want to communicate this idea, and it already knows that block of language. I remember when I was learning Spanish, I knew blocks of language. I didn't know the words individually, but I knew that's how you said that phrase.
Oh, okay.
Has that ever happened to you? Has that ever happened to you? I don't know. Like
I would say yeah. I would say yes, especially for example with difficult sentence. I remember when I was learning English, I was studying English, and when we were trying to come up with different ways to say hello or to ask somebody what are you doing, and I remember that somebody told me that it was very cool to learn the sentence, what have you been doing lately?
Exactly.
And it made no sense to me individually, but like one sentence, it sounded great.
A similar sentence I always teach my students is, what have you been up to? I'm not sure if it's more of a British expression. What have you been up to? What have you been, and it means the same. What have you been doing lately? But
exactly.
I don't think, maybe they don't know how you write it individually, all those words. What have you been up to? You just remember the
or to use those words into some other sentences. But that complete sentence, that's absolutely great.
Yeah.
All right. And how about your Italian? Because you're living in Italy right now, and same question. Did you take classes, or what? Just like living there, you get the hang of it?
Yeah, I took classes when I first arrived for 2 weeks. It's kind of a habit. I take classes the first couple of weeks when I moved to a new place, and then after that, I became very busy, so I didn't have time to take any last classes. But most of my social life I do in Italian now. So if I go out with friends, I speak in Italian. My girlfriend's Italian. She speaks really good English, but I try to speak to her in Italian as well. So yeah, I just try and involve as many parts of my life in Italian. I work mostly in English, so that's difficult, but kind of in my free time, I try and go, okay, mentality is Italian's the language I have to communicate in.
Do you ever have that confusion when you're talking, like, am I using this verb in Portuguese, or I'm thinking in English, I'm going to express myself in Italian? Do you have that confusion? Because most of my students ask, Alejo, if I decide to learn any other language, say Chinese, German, whatever, and any other language, am I gonna get confused with my process of English? Am I going to forget my English? Is it happen?
Yeah, it does happen. Because Italian's the language I'm speaking most of the time now, so it doesn't happen so much in Italian, but sometimes I use a Spanish word, maybe because I don't remember the word in Italian and I remember it in Spanish. So I just automatically say that, and people give me some funny looks like, what? What are you saying?
Yeah.
So not so much. If I'm to speak Spanish now or Portuguese, I would use a lot of Italian words, but I'm not speaking Spanish or Portuguese every day. If I go to Spain and I speak Spanish for 2 weeks, my brain shifts to Spanish.
Yeah.
Now my brain shifted to Italian, but I need a couple of weeks to shift it over. I think it's all there. It's in my head somewhere. But now if I try and speak Spanish, some things will come out Italian.
All right, all right.
So, if you want to speak all of the languages simultaneously at the same time, you need to be practicing them or doing something in all of the languages at the same time, especially because, the languages that I've learned are all so similar. Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian are all from the same family.
I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. I hope this is not the first. This is not the last time we talk. It's the first, but certainly I don't want it to be the last. People have been asking me to talk to you in Spanish. Entonces yo creo que para terminar deberías dar la recomendación que visiten tus páginas para que aprendan inglés, pero obviamente que nos regales ahí el saludito en español.
Muy bien, gracias. Bueno, no, es que no estoy acostumbrado a hablar español ahora, pero bueno, estoy pensando todo el tiempo en italiano. Pero
Ok.
me gusta mucho hacer estas cosas contigo y bueno, creo que mi español no es muy bueno en este momento,
No,
momento.
it sounds good. It sounds really good. It sounds really good. You say gracias with the with the fee from Spain, and we're not used to that, but that's absolutely great. Sam, thank you very much. So we can follow you on Papi English and also Black Cat, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Come and follow us. I'm always there to help. We're giving on Papi English, I'm always doing kind of video tips. On Black Cat as well, video tips to help you improve your English, and we're giving away lots of free materials as well, also to help you learn English. So check it out if you want to learn something new.
All right. Okay. Sam, I hope to see you very soon.
Of course. I'm looking forward to the next time. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye, man.
Bye, ciao.
Welcome to